Welcome to Backyard Bows. Hey, welcome to Backyard Bows. I'm Brandon, and today we got another bear up here. This was actually one of the first bows that I ordered way back when all the flagship bows were coming out. And when we were kind of going through all the new bows for the season and which bows that we wanted to get in here first, and this was one of the ones I ordered this so long ago. I'm not gonna blame it fully on Bear. I think it did take a while for them to get it in, but I think once the bow shop got it in, I think it got tucked away in the side, and I think they forgot about it and nobody called me. And then I was in there the other day and they were like, oh yeah, by the way, we have this Bear Refine in here. And so I think I forgot about it, they forgot about it, but it's finally in. So this was the flagship bow for 22. They just came out with the Execute, which is same EKO cams, a little bit, well, I guess brand new limb pockets, widened limbs, and a new riser. But that is the new flagship bow that's kind of ending the season here. But we figured we'd start with this one. I've been excited to get this one in. I've never really got too many of the premium, flagship bows from Bear in my hands. Every time I've used a Bear, it's always been kind of one of those lower end budget bow type bows, which we've done several of those this year. The Alaskan, the Legit, the Whitetail Legend Pro. I think my favorite so far has been the Alaskan. But let's just go ahead. First of all, the bottomland camo that's on this is awesome. Online, it looked like it would be like a really faint camo, but this pops. Right when I got it out of the box, I was like, it's probably one of my favorite camo patterns ever. And they have maybe 9 to choose from. All of them I liked. But let's go ahead, let's go to the specs. 33 inches axle to axle, 6.3 inch brace height. It didn't have any of the weight specs online or on the box when it came in, and I weighed it, it's over 5 pounds. So it's a good a good bow with some substance to it. The IBO is 342. You have 26.5 to 30.5 on these EKO cams. And then last but not least, the poundage. I think you have an option of 70 pounds that goes down to 55. And then you have an option of 60 pounds that goes down to 45. So a nice 15-pound fluctuation. I love that, the more the better to me. Because if you're like me after season, and I've been shooting a whole bunch after all these reviews, occasionally I'll drop that draw weight poundage down just because I'm exhausted, I'm sore, I can shoot more reps, and then right as season comes up, or even maybe a little bit before, I'll bump it back up to kind of bring some of that kinetic energy again. Or if you're a 3D hunter and you want to use this in your competitions, you can lower that bow weight poundage down for your 3D season when you're shooting a whole bunch, and then again bump it back up when you're going into your hunts. So I love the riser design. It has a couple dampeners kind of tucked inside the riser. I think they're well placed. I love when the dampeners kind of included into the riser to help with that vibration. They have the vibration reduction system, pretty much these ones inside the riser, and then they have a block on top and bottom. They actually slide really easily. Every time I was shooting, it was like moving forward more and more and more. I think one of the things that stood out to me the most on the bow from just the pictures was this cable guard, and I didn't realize it until it came into the shop. But as you draw back, there's kind of a lever system on the back, and this cable guard moves and adjusts, and it kind of inside of those ball bearings. I really like this system. I think it makes for a really nice smooth draw. There's kind of no unnecessary tension or pulling. It just kind of eases right into it, and that's kind of the first time I've seen that this year or ever. I really like that. Obviously you got some nice limb pockets underneath. They have exactly what I like to see, which is kind of something to secure the limb pockets from moving front and back. I think that was the only other thing that we were seeing in Bear's even budget bows, is that they had a metal liner, aluminum liner inside of all their limb pockets, even the ones that were composite. So I loved seeing that on some of those lower price bows as well. Anytime there's a dampener onto the string stop, I think that's the best way to go. I loved these EKO cams on both the Whitetail Legend Pro and the Alaskan. They adjust, their let-off adjusts from 75 all the way out to 90, and it has to do right here with the string stop. You can rotate it. It has a little arrow on it, and you can rotate it to the right after you adjust your mod, rotate it to the left, and you can incrementally in 5% increments go from 75 all the way out to 90. There's a little video on their website, and I think that it was very instructional, really, because when you first look at it, it's not the most self-explanatory. It really helped explaining how to change your let off from one to the other. Man, I have been dying to shoot this. It's a little bit bigger bow than I'm used to at 33 inches axle to axle. It, like I mentioned too, it kind of weighs a little bit more too. It's a nice solid bow. After having all these other budget bows in here from Bear, I was finally really excited to get one of their flagship bows in here. So we'll do our single shot assessment. I took a friend to the shop the other day. We're trying to get him set up on a bow. And here's what I would do. And I explained this to him, and I mentioned this a couple of times, but when you shoot that bow the first time, those first shots are going to be the truest shots on how the bow feels to you. 1, 2, and 3. And again, maybe by 3 it will have loosened up and changed a little bit, but again, they're gonna be the truest shots. And I told him, get close to the bag, close your eyes, pure feeling. And then you have a lot of people that comment like, hey, quit gripping your bow so hard. When I'm in here, I purposefully grip my bow a little bit just to kind of feel some of that vibration and some of that kickback from the bow. So I shoot my single shot assessment a little bit differently than I would the freestyle shoot outside. But let's shoot some. So you got a little bit of vibration in your hand. Man, I always talk about the grip and how they stand out so differently than me. I don't know why they put this thing on here. They said it come with the Grizz grip. This is just a big chunk of plastic on here. It's slippery. I don't know. I feel like on a flagship bow, it should have maybe a little bit different grip. And then they said you can also order a different grip, and maybe that is the, maybe that one is a little different, but the one that comes standard with this bow, I really don't like it. I like the shape of it, but just not the material that it's made out of. The draw is really, really nice. I think the draw, every bow I've used with those EKO cams is nice. This bow has enough weight to it that it has a little vibration, but it has a really nice follow through. I love the shot cycle of these EKO cams. And I think that's why they didn't really change them going into that Execute, the new flagship bow. They pretty much changed everything else but that. And it's just because they're just some nice solid cams. Let's do a couple more. I like the balance of the bow. I really like the shot cycle. And something else I forgot to mention, it has this line lock technology where if you look inside the riser right here, there's a built-in level, and that kind of helps you with your second and third axis when you're leveling out your sight. I love little stuff like that when they just think of little extra things that can just help you a little bit, especially if you're a DIY person. So, but we finally got a ton of different targets, 3D targets. We got a whole bunch of new Reinhardt targets outside in the backyard. This will be the first review with all the new targets, so I'm excited to get outside. Then we'll come back in, we'll run this thing through the chronograph. 342 is nice and hot for that IBO. I feel like this bow has some good strength to it. I think it's gonna really pump this arrow that I have, but we'll do that afterwards and then we'll give it that final grade. But let's step outside and do some freestyle shoots. So on to the best part. As I mentioned, we got a full 3D course out here. We just added a whole bunch of new targets to the backyard. Most of them are from this way, but there is a kicking buck right here, which we put at 35 from this angle. And then if you go shoot across the yard, that same kicking buck is at 45. There's a new gray wolf, which is at 35. And then a new black bear, a little bit nicer, bigger black bear is still at 40, and everything else is the same. But we'll kind of work our way up that 3D ladder. We'll shoot at all the targets. We'll turn off the camera. We'll shoot a whole bunch more. It's fall. It feels like bow hunting. Doing all of these reviews through the summer when it was really hot, it didn't feel like bow hunting, so this will be a little bit more pleasurable getting out here and shooting some of this with this nice cool weather. But we'll start here with the boar. Man, this thing does have a little snap to it. but the amount of vibration in my hand it seems to be less and less noticeable. I think the weight of the bow and the kind of weight distribution of the bow has a really nice follow through. And then again, I really like the draw on this. That 33 inches axle to axle with my 30-inch draw length, man, it just feels really, really good. It holds really nice once I get it back. It has a nice back wall. This is a nice one. It's nice to get one of these premier bows from Bear in here, but this is a nice bow. So now we'll go on the other buck. And I would say, honestly, I would say a lot of that smoothness of that draw has to go into this cable guard and the way that it swings and moves and allows your cables to just kind of glide. But the draw on this is awesome. So let's step across, we'll shoot some longer range shots. So again, we got little 5-yard increments. We got turkey 20, which we'll just go ahead and jump right to the coyote. Coyote at 25, broadhead buck at 30, gray wolf at 35, mama black bear at 40, kicking buck at 45, and then we have the elk up on top at 50. So this is $1,000 bow, $9,999. Okay, the execute, I think they just added $100 to it, so they're bumping it up. For a $1,000 bow, all I'm gonna say to Bear Archery is give us a different grip. This thing this is killing me. The rest of the bow, I honestly don't have a single complaint about this. From the weight distribution, the draw cycle is super smooth. I love this cable guard system that kind of is on that lever like we just mentioned. And the bow itself seems extremely durable, solid. I love the little dampeners kind of worked inside of the riser. This is cool. I love the camo. We're gonna go coyote. And again, we'll just work our way right up. And these first shots that we do, we just kind of sling them. I just kind of get out here and we'll shoot some shots. And these are kind of some of the first shots on some of these farther away. I kind of dial it into the garage up to 15 yards. Once I get this React trophy pin at like 15, 20, I can pretty much, I can set the other ones really quickly. So these are kind of some of the first shots we've taken on this side over here. But we'll go broadhead buck. There's a little hole in the bottom side of that broadhead buck because I'm always shooting at hard shots. And the arrows don't stick, so we'll shoot another one. We've kind of knocked that whole portion of the target out. I like this. So we're kind of right in the middle of our hunting season, and one of the things we said is that we're going to kind of try and use different bow setups, slightly different arrow setups for different hunts throughout the year. And we're on our third bow. And we're still going to try to work in some other bows towards the end of this year. And I could easily see myself in the field with this. This is just a nice solid bow. I mean, and solid is what comes to mind. It has some good weight to it. But I love that. I always say, like, I like a little bit of substance to my bows, especially when they're hanging in a tree for most of the day and I'm not having to carry them and hike with them. This bow sets up real nice. A little bit longer axle than I'm usually hunting with, but man, it feels really good. All right, let me move the camera angle around. We'll shoot one more on that new wolf, and then we'll get over to the bears. So the farther out you get, the more the stability is kind of noticeable, and I think this bow has some great stability. The pins dial down on themselves. You know, wherever you're holding it, there's no floating to the pins. They just kind of sit right where you put them. I love that. We'll do one more on the gray wolf. Now we'll jump over to that new mama black bear at 40. Man, these Reinhardt targets, these really nice ones, I think this guy closed down like a 3D archery thing, and I ended up getting them on sale. And you always wonder like why they're so expensive. Pulling arrows out of these things, you can tell they're just durable. It's a big difference getting the arrows out, but they're real nice. Man, that feels so good. So we'll do one more on that black bear, just because I love shooting on it. And then we'll do our full draw stall on who we call Paddington. Even with the wind, and that's what I've said that with some of the, I think it was the Bowtech Carbon Icon, just it being so light, even the slightest bit of wind, you kind of float a little bit. Man, this bow having some good substance to it, it just makes it so solid in full draw. So let's do our full draw stall. We got 1 minute here, and then we'll release one on Paddington. So here it goes. Whew. Man, that was kind of tough. It has a nice solid back wall, but man, that does pull on you. And again, a heavier bow too, the harder it is to hold up in full draw for a longer amount of time. But I think I placed a pretty good shot after that minute. So I love that test. Let's set up and we'll shoot some at the longer range ones. We'll go inside, we'll run it through the chrono, and we'll give our first flagship bow from Bear Archery a grade. So we're finishing up the on film part right when I think it's getting pretty windy, but we'll go ahead and continue to shoot some throughout this day before we give it that final grade. But two things. One, I feel like this is a bow I'll be able to shoot a good amount of, but man, it's heavy. It's really smooth draw getting back, but you do got to put some effort into holding it back. So that's kind of like, you know, it kind of factors into how many shots we'll get through it. Another thing, I think when we run it through the chrono, I think this thing is going to pump an arrow. You can kind of tell, and you shoot so many bows, you can tell by the shot cycle, by the feeling, you know, of the arrow coming off that bow, kind of where it's going to range in. And I think it's going to be really nice, solid mid 280s, maybe pushing a 290, but we'll see. So let's get up there. We'll do some on the elk. Man, that one felt good. Man, these are just flying off of here. You can always tell at the 50, the arc on the arrow, you kind of get a little glimpse of it after you shoot, and these are darts. I mean, these things are on a string. Man, I'm getting tired. But again, that kind of just shows you, you get out there, is this your, you know, your daily shooter? You know, and I kind of always factor that in too. I would say everybody needs to be practicing as much as possible. So, you know, kind of factor that into your bow buying process. Like, are you going to be able to shoot? You see yourself shooting this thing every single day, lots of reps. But man, as well as this thing shoots, it's kind of, you know, you got to put a little effort into shooting. So let's go run it through the chrono. Okay, we're going to do things a little different with the speed tests. First of all, you know, people will comment, man, it seems like your chronograph is running a little hot. It seems like that's a little inaccurate. When I put everything into like, you know, an IBO calculator online, I think it's all very, very, very close. I don't think it's the chronograph's fault. I think that there's other variables that can go into affecting one of these chronographs. I will say though, is we try to not change anything. So the placement of the chronograph under the lights that are turned on and turned off, it being indoors instead of outdoors, I do all of the speed tests the same. So I think honestly say that every bow that we've done in here can be accurately compared to one another. Whether or not The Bear Refined that shoots through this chronograph right here is going to be the exact same as the one that you set up outside at your house. I don't know. But I think it's a good depiction of how they stack up against each other, and I think that's what we're trying to do. Another thing, and I read all the comments. I love interacting. We had a request that we can do a different grain arrow, so we'll kind of start that too. So I have a 300 spine full metal jacket, okay? We're set at 70 pounds, 29.5 draw length. This full metal jacket is right at 500 grains. So this will be the test that we've done on every single bow, the exact same since the beginning. And then we have a 400 spine, 440 grain arrow that will also run through, so you can kind of see a little bit of a difference. And maybe we'll do that from now on. And I will say those 400 grain, or 400 spine, 440 grains, that's what I started out hunting with. And since then I've kind of bumped it up to 500 grains. But when I did hunt with those, I never had a problem with penetration, anything like that. Those shot just as well. I think I went to 340 spine and then all the way down to 300 spine, which is where I'm at now. But let's go ahead. We'll do a couple with the heavier grain arrows, and then we'll do a couple. So right at what I guessed earlier, 283. I thought mid 280s, which is perfect. Let's shoot a couple just to kind of get an idea of that consistency. Sometimes they do jump around a little bit. 287. So right under that 290 mark. Let's shoot another one. I know I've said this before, but sometimes they kind of warm up and they'll climb a little bit. 283. So that's awesome. Right in there in the mid 280s. That's right where we want to be. That's a perfect speed for me with my grain arrow. So let's go ahead. We'll shoot the 440 grain arrow and kind of give you a little bit of a comparison. .301. So 440 grains, great hunting arrow as well. You know, that bumps you up 20 feet per second. So there's a drastic change when you start dropping that arrow grain. Again, I'm shooting 30, 40 yards tops. I like a nice heavy arrow. It's gonna get me some good penetration, bring that kinetic energy. I think it goes perfect with my draw length, draw weight, everything. And that's kind of what I've worked up to. This is a huge topic amongst hunters that I see across the board. It all depends on consistency of arrow flight. If you're shooting really consistent shots with anything over 400, 420 grains, you know, don't listen to anybody else. You know, that's kind of a preference after that. And again, I've shot a lot of different grain arrows and I've bounced around a ton, and 312. So I love this bow. Nice and fast, nice and consistent. This is a great product by Bear. But I would say don't listen to anybody. You choose what you have the most consistency with and what flies the best with your bow setup that you have. And you can kind of mess around with it, you know, and like I said, this is where I ended up at 500 grains, and that's just kind of where I'm at right now. Will I always shoot that same arrow at 500 grains? I don't know, and probably not. But that's just kind of where I'm at the moment. And that's why we started doing our tests with it, because that's what I was hunting with. But that's right at 298, so 300. So jumps around a little bit, but man, this thing is humming. I like that we did a little bit of arrow comparison. So again, if you have anything, leave it in the comments. I love interacting. I love answering questions. I'm kind of learning as we go too. You know, so I love kind of the back and forth interaction with anybody that's watching. But if you have any requests and if we can accommodate them, we will. So give us a second. We'll put a grade together and we'll be back. So Bear Archery's flagship bow for this year. This is what they started off with. The Bear Refined. So now they have the Execute, which is Execute 30 and 32. This is a 33-inch axle. The 32 is 32, 30 is 30. So they did change the riser, similar but different bridges. They did change the limb pockets. It has more of like a V shape, kind of, which is a unique thing kind of for those limb pockets to come forward like that. It does use the same EKO cams. I think even this cable guard containment system is similar in the fact that this will pivot, but it rotates forward and backwards, and you can actually slide and move it. That's what it looks like from the picture. I have not touched the Execute yet. So Man, I loved this bow. Again, this is like the first really nice flagship type bow from Bear Archery I've had in my hands in a while, and I think it was very well done. They don't have many of these, even though they have about 25 different bows on their website. They only have a couple that are in this price range, right around $1,000. I think the Execute that just released is actually like $1,200. So they are now, their top flagship bows are right in there in that flagship category price of right about $1,200, $1,250. So this one was right on 99. I think they are sold out of this right now. I love this bottomland camo. I don't think you can get that in anywhere else. I haven't seen that camo option offered on any other company, but man, that's slick. So 285 for the speed, gets a 10 out of 10 right to start off. I think that's a great speed. I love that we did the little fluctuation with the 440 grain arrow versus a 500 grain arrow, because I know all of you out there, your arrow grains are gonna fluctuate, but just to kind of give you an idea. So quality, durability, I gave it the 8 out of 10. Man, this thing is really well constructed, really nice. I like the limb pockets on these kind of versus every other bow that we've seen from them. I think the riser is really well made, nice machine riser. This thing is just really slick. I love this cable guard system. Again, nice and solid, ball bearing cable guard system, nice solid piece right there. And that goes directly into the riser that's mounted inside of it. I also love this little level thing, and you know, anything like that that a company does to kind of single themselves out from other companies to help you get those second and third axes on your site. I think the bow's quality is up there. So I got the 8 out of 10. I gave it an 8 out of 10 for appeal. I love the actual, the camo color. Appeal is one of those categories where I'm either in love with something or it's kind of right on the borderline for me. And so I usually give it an 8 or a 9. I try not to hit anything too hard with that category, but I know it factors into a lot of our decision making when it comes to these bows. I actually had somebody in here the other day and I asked him, hey, this bow doesn't fit you that well. Why did you buy this bow? And he said, I like the way it looks. You know, and again, as much as you realize it and don't want to admit it, I think that kind of goes into a lot of our decision making, is kind of how it looks, how things matches, the accessories we buy. Some yes, some no, but 8 out of 10 for me on that. Also 8 out of 10 for the technology. I like that you can change it from 75 to 90. I think it's not self-explanatory. You do have to watch that little video on how to rotate it all. And then even after I did that, I still was unsure about what setting I was on, so I went and checked. So I do like that technology, but it's not necessarily the simplest system to work with. Everything else on it is pretty basic, well constructed, but basic. So I gave it an 8 out of 10 for the technology. Performance, I went with a 9 out of 10. I think the only negative thing I could even have and say about this bow is this plastic bulky grip on here. I didn't like it at all, but the thing shot very well. It held really nice. One of the most stable bows we've had in here. I like that little bit of extra length I got on that axle to axle. That felt good. The bow's weight, which they don't tell you online because I feel like it might be a deterrent if the weight of the bow is higher. People, like, for some reason will kind of take that as a negative, so I think they kept that off of the specs online just to hide it. It is a little bit heavier bow, but man, it felt really good, and I think that played into the stability too. Really nice and solid and full draw. The smooth on this, the draw on this thing is so smooth. I say it goes into this cable guard that has that levy that kind of swings. I don't know what it is, but man, these AKO cams did not feel as smooth on the Alaskan as they did this, but this thing just was butter to pull back. Loved it overall. 43, it got a plus extra 2 because it was right at 1,000 with taxes. It'll be over 1,000, so anywhere between 1,000 and 1,500. We give it 2 makeup points. 45, 90 over 100. Man, you can't beat that. That's right at that solid A. This is a great bow. I would love to get the new flagship bow, the Execute, in here. So if anybody from Bear's watching, send it over. I think we have the most bows in here from a company or from Bear. Love Bear Archery, what they do, and how they kind of approach all of their bows. Great customer service. You can't go wrong with a company that's been around as long as they have. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and YouTube to come out to get updates on all the new bows that we've come out. Go on our YouTube, subscribe to our channel, watch some of the other videos that we've already done. Man, we've put out a ton of bows. We have a lot of stuff right in the middle of hunting season, so there's gonna be a lot of new videos coming out that I like, as well as this basic bowman series that we have been working our asses off to get to you guys, and for you to point anyone in the direction who's interested in buying their first bow. Send them, send them and let them watch these basic bowman videos that'll walk you through that entire process all the way up to practicing in your backyard. I think it's a great tool to be able to show somebody and kind of have them sit down in front of some of these videos first before they go into this process, which we all know can be a little bit intimidating with as many companies as there is out there, and kind of navigating through all of these different bows and companies and accessories and stuff like that. So a nice helpful video there. Above all, make sure you get your reps in on the daily. We'll see you next Saturday.